Once I've certified it safe and you bring in all your equipment. Now, lock ring is the only thing we're recommending that we do our R600a service procedures with. This gas is very flammable. As you saw during the little video, it just took an arc from a striker or a spark from a striker to get it to light up. Now, we have decided to use the lock ring, Vulcan lock ring recovery bag. And in conjunction with Vulcan lock ring, we have developed the LG R600a service procedure. They were our partners on this. We're going to be showing you how to use a recovery bag, and we're also using the Vulcan lock ring charging station as we do this repair. And we'll go through and show you the ins and outs. There are two ways to recover, well, there's three ways to recover the refrigerant. Only one way that LG is using, and that's going to be the bag. Now, many of you may have attended some R600 training, or you may have seen some videos where they show this 10, 15 foot hose is thrown out the window. That is another possibility. We decided not to go that route because some apartments and condos don't have windows in the kitchen. Number two, if you're going to put it out the window, you have to determine nothing underneath that window is a risk of flame or ignition. If you happen to be in a house where there's a basement, you got to make sure there's not a basement window there, that you're actually letting the isobutane, since it's heavier than air, hit the ground, run into the basement where it could be ignited by a coal-fired burner or oil burner or a hot water heater, etc. You get the picture. So we've decided to use the bag. There will eventually be some kind of recovery machine brought into the country, but we all decided we'd stick with the bag. So the bag you've got to have. You'll notice the gauges I'm going to be using. We'll get some close-up. These gauges are specifically designed for use with R600a. R600 runs on a refrigerator freezer about 11 inches of mercury. That's 11 inches in a vacuum. And you'll notice the gauges we're going to use have about a quarter of the gauge is negative pressure. So it's very easy to read the pressure, and that's going to come in when you need to diagnose the unit. Another thing, this unit has been off for quite a while. And what you'll notice here, we're actually sitting at about 11 PSI equalized pressure. And guys, this is a brand new, perfectly running unit. Now the room in here today is about 72 degrees. The other day I shot a video similar to this on the other unit I've got because we need to shoot a quick video on that one. And it was 67 in the room, and our equalized pressure was 7 PSI. Most techs would look at that and say, I got a leak. Not with R600. It's very low pressured refrigerant. Guys, it boils at about 10.5 degrees. And R134 boils at minus 15.5, 16 degrees. So there is a big difference here. The other new piece of equipment you've got to get is a vacuum pump that is sparkless. When AHAM did these rules, we sent our guidelines to OSHA, to CPSC, to EPA, and all those agencies had input. And one of the inputs was the vacuum pump. And if you happen to be working with an A2L refrigerant, air conditioning, you have to have a sparkless recovery machine. Today we're only dealing with R600a. Some other things as we go through I'll bring up to you. One is a fan. Now, I'm in a quite large shop. So when you're working on R600a, one of the things we talk about is working in a well-ventilated area. Now you can ventilate the area. I've got double doors going out to the warehouse. I've got one of those open. I'm in this huge lab. We've got plenty of airspace. If you happen to be in a tight galley kitchen, what you're going to want to do is about 9-10 feet away from you, set a fan up on the floor, blowing towards you. You're just wanting the air to mix around so we don't hit that perfect little spot where you've got enough fuel, oxygen, ignition source, you get a fire or a bang. Now, I don't want anyone to get worried and say, oh my gosh, isobutane, R600a, the acetylene we carry in our torches is probably 5 or 6 times more volatile than the R600a. So we all learn safe procedures with acetylene. All we've got to do is learn the safe procedures with R600a. When you get ready to service, we've decided we need to get into this. You're going to unplug the refrigerator, and this is an area that may change. But what they told us was, during the servicing procedure, the unit needed to remain grounded. Well, in a lot of new homes, the water pipe bringing the water to the ice maker is no longer copper or steel. So working with our electronics people here, we came up with a little device. This is handmade. It's an extension cord repair kit, you might want to call it. It's a male and female end with one piece of 14 gauge stranded that is only connected to the ground. So what I'm going to do is plug this into the wall, my refrigerator into this end, the unit remains grounded. But what that does mean is you, the technician, first and foremost, either using a meter, or if you have a little wall detector like this, plug it in and make sure your plug is properly polarized and grounded. On this particular one, if these two over here light up, means I'm on a properly polarized and grounded receptacle. So I'm going to come over here, I've got a little power strip, and I plug it in, and I find out I'm good. So what I'm going to do is plug this in, and I made these with about 10 feet of wire. The reason is they're suggesting that anything you have to plug in and out should be several feet away from the refrigerator. Again, remember, we're dealing with a flammable refrigerant. We don't want any sparks. So I gave myself 10 feet of power cord. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plug my refrigerator in. So the only thing I've done is ground this unit back to the house. Okay, now that I've got my appliance grounded, I wanted to back up for a second and talk about the leak detector again. Guys, I cannot stress this strongly enough. The refrigerant leak detector has to be certified to pick up hydrocarbons. And you cannot use your refrigerant, i.e. R134A 22410. And here's why. On those other, a CFC, HCFC, HFC leak detector, the very tip of the probe either has a hot probe in it or a sparker. Guys, you're going around a flammable refrigerant. That's your ignition source. So never use a standard refrigerant leak detector when you're looking for a hydrocarbon, in other words, R600a leak, or any flammable leak. Now, the other piece of equipment you're required to have, a Class B fire extinguisher has to be on the job with you, but we have asked them how big. I'm hoping they go with one about the size of a thermos, but you do have to have a Class B fire extinguisher with you where you could reach it. So I've got one right here beside the refrigerator. I've got my new compressor and dryer. I've got my recovery bag, my lock ring kit, my meter, my gauges. I've got my seal system tools, micron gauge, vacuum pump, Vulcan lock ring charging station, and my nitrogen. So I'm ready to get going. So let's go ahead and get started.